started. Good afternoon / almost evening. We're thrilled that you're joining us. Today with us, we've got Dr. Moreno, Ms. Lohoff, and Ms. Valenta, who will be co-facilitating and presenting our reopening plans to date. And they are part of the team that's been working really hard to consider all the factors and implications into reopening in this time. So we'll jump in and get started. Do know that this is being recorded and will be available on our ASA TV YouTube channel shortly after. So if you know of anyone who may not be able to attend and they're asking you to take diligent notes, go ahead and take it easy and remind them that they can come and watch this back at the time that works for them. So I wanted to jump in and first give you a little bit of background on our plans to date. Our plans, while unique to Allegiance, they're also anchored in the current health and safety guidelines that are available from both, starting at the CDC level to the state and then to the local county level. You'll also know, if you have a child in CVUSD, that our plans mirror one another pretty well. And that's by design, not by accident or coincidence. So being that we're in the same community, serving in the same context, it makes sense that our plans are going to look a lot more alike than they are going to look different. So you'll note that. And note that as we share things, yeah, there are some things that are specific to staff and to kids but the plan overall really affects the entire community. So that's for staff, for students, and for parent guardians alike. And note that we are in fast evolving times. So anything and everything included tonight is subject to change as we learn more and more about the implications for reopening school. So I'd like to start off by thanking the team that's responsible for putting tonight together, specifically Dr. Moreno, Ms. Lohoff, Ms. Valenta, and Mr. McCorkle. Mr. McCorkle may be able to join us. He did a lot of work to get us to this place, but he had a conflict this evening, so he might not be able to join us, but hopefully he can. Also, the Chino Valley Unified School District, they've included us in their planning and resources sharing all along this process. So I want to make sure to recognize them as well. And then you, for your patience and understanding, your grace at this time. This is one of those areas where we don't have it all figured out. We are making decisions with the most and best information we have available to us. But what's happening, at the forefront of every decision is what is best for your child. That is always driving our decisions. But we know that a time like this requires a lot of grace and support from you. So thank you for that. Thank you, Ms. Lohoff, for this icon. We attended or emoji. We attended a Chino Valley's study session last night on their reopening, and at the end of it, Ms. Lohoff texted me this emoji, which is rather fitting in these times. So, and if you're not sure about that yet, wait till we share some information, and you'll. There's just a lot. I know I'm making light of it, but there's a lot of considerations when it comes to safely and responsibly, opening the school for your children. So it can be a little mind-blowing at times. So this is what we'll cover tonight. I'll share a little bit about the California's Resilience Roadmap. This might not be the first time you're hearing about it. It's not specific for schools. It is the roadmap to reopening California, right? So this applies to the economy, to the public sector, the private sector, just about all aspects of our daily lives are being impacted by this roadmap. So you may be familiar with the stages and so on. This is the driving anchor or the driving factor in our reopening. It's not public opinion. It's not my preference. It's not anything other than what is dictated in regards to what's coming down as far as what aligns appropriately to the stages of the resilience roadmap. So I'm going to try to hit that point as clearly as I can, and you'll see that reference throughout our presentation tonight. We'll talk a little bit about how choice is an important aspect of our plan, and then the team will kind of take over and share some of the possible models for reopening. Dr. Moreno will talk about student supports. I'll talk a little bit, the team together will talk about our school culture in this time. And I will share a little bit about safety precautions, and then we're going to open it up for some questions and answers. We are going to have kind of a hard end time of about 7:25 p.m. because some of you on this call want to join our PAC meeting tonight, and that starts at 7:30. So that gives us kind of a hard out at 7:25. Note that we do have a time set aside at the end for questions and answers, but do use the chat box. We probably won't stop and answer your question if you ask it now, but we're all monitoring the chat box and we'll be sure to go back to it at the appropriate time. So with that, let me talk to you a little bit about California's Resilience Roadmap. Again, this is the framework for the stages of reopening across the state. We know our state is very diverse. You know, Eureka, California, north of San Francisco, way up north on the coast, looks very different than the Inland Empire, and even in our county, you know, the West Inland Empire or West San Bernardino County, which includes Chino Hills, is very different than Blythe, which is also in the same county, or Needles, or so on, or the High Desert. So, hope I got that right. Not one of those is in Riverside, right? I think I got those right. So even our county is diverse. So we are learning that the stages will be even more localized for us as well, meaning that what might be true in the High Desert, maybe even though same county, may be looking different than us. So the reason we want to share these stages to California Resilience Roadmap is that the our models for reopening are contingent on what stage we're in as we approach the start of the school year, which, by the way, is still, let's say it boldly, August 10th. August 10th was our original start date for school. We have no intentions of changing that at this time. Not in our discussions at this time. So everything we're sharing with you is under the assumption that we're starting August 10th. Again, no reasons to think differently. So I'm going to give a brief sort of visual of what you're going to see in the minutes ahead. So here are the three models for reopening. These are the three possible models for what it looks like on August 10th for us. Notice that each of them are tied to stages. So in one scenario, we may open in distance learning. For those of you who are returning and we're at Allegiance in 2019-20, you will see a familiar but not identical model to what we ended the school year with if we are in stages 1, 2A, 2B. By the way, we're in 2B right now with signs of moving, and I say we, not Allegiance, I say San Bernardino County, Western San Bernardino County, where we reside. And we are hearing that we're possibly could be in stage 3 by the start of the school year. Again, we don't have a crystal ball. We can't predict the future, but the signs are kind of inching in that direction, which could be encouraging. So back to kind of how the models work with the stages. So if we are in stage 2A or 2B, I doubt we'll be in stage 1, then we will open the school year in distance learning. Right now, being that we are in 2B and have been for some time and are kind of moving our way towards stage 3, we could potentially open the school year in a hybrid learning model. And then unlikely for the start of the school year, but again, we can't predict the future. If we're beyond stage 2B and deep into stage 3, approaching stage 4, then a traditional start to the school year could be possible. Again, I want to be realistic. Traditional is possible, but I don't want to make promises that we have no control over. So based on where we are today, we would likely be opening in hybrid learning, possibly moving towards traditional. Obviously, that's what we all want, and that's what all the work that we've been doing together as a community is aiming towards. So in one of these three models, we will be opening, and the team will take you on a deeper dive into aspects of each so you can have a better understanding of what each would entail. All that being said, if your family is in a situation where either of the two models on the right, hybrid learning, which you'll soon see involves kids coming physically to school, or traditional instruction, which of course means they're at school, if either of those are not conducive to your family for medical reasons, for health reasons, etc., and other, then we intend to have an option as well which is a home-based learning option. This is the parental choice I'll talk about in a moment. Notice that the graphic kind of stops here. If we're all in distance learning, then that's not really an option. We're all in distance learning. 100% of our kids will be learning virtually from home. But if we're offering hybrid or traditional, and that's just not going to make sense for your family for reasons I shared or others, then we intend to have an option for you where your child can remain home and still be a part of our 810 students for the 2020-2021 school year. We'll talk a little bit more about that. So this is an important aspect of our plan. These times call for options, for greater options and flexibility to our models. For every parent that wants their child back in school, seat-based 100% of the time, there's a scenario in which that might not make the most sense for a family, given everything we know about COVID and so on. So we wanted to be able to, like Chino Valley Unified, offer some flexibility to families to suit them. So I want to be clear, this is to accommodate our 810 students, not any number beyond that. We're not opening up our school to numbers beyond our enrollment. We are trying to accommodate our own families, which includes 810 students. So what we'll be doing to better understand your situation is we're going to put a survey out. We're going to put the same survey out twice. That's why that survey says surveys in parentheses. It's the same survey, it'll go out twice. Initially, we want to just kind of get a sense of what our community is telling us. The survey will go out by the end of this week, and it's essentially going to ask you if you're at all interested in a home-based learning model. Should we open the school year in a hybrid or traditional format? That will allow us to know how many students we can anticipate are going to be learning from home, because we have to make programmatic decisions on how we meet their needs. And we need to have an idea, is it 2 of our kids or is it 500 of our students? We need to have an understanding of what that is. And so we'll be putting a survey out the next few days that will allow us to kind of just get some raw data to have a sense of what our community is telling us. As we get towards the middle of July, then we sorry. Could you mute yourself, please? Thank you. Ms. Lohoff, you might be able to do it. I think you're cool if you can find that. The same exact survey will go out mid-July, because now we're getting closer to the start of the school year. Maybe the resilience roadmap stages change, so your position changes on or whatever it may be. So as we get closer to reopening, we will also put the same survey out, and we'll use that as a more precise indicator of what we need to do programmatically to make sure we're ready for all 810 of our students. And I'll speak a little bit more about the home-based option as you hear the other models as well. Again, recognizing that for some of you, this may be the best choice for your families. So I'm going to turn it over to our team, who's going to talk about the first option out of the 3 models. I believe, Ms. Valenta, is this you?
Yes, this is me.
What?
All right, good evening, everyone. So I got the fun one. I got the distance learning, and we are hoping that we are not in this when we start the school year. Like Dr. Cognetta said, this is a stage 2A and below. We are really looking at right now at being a 2B. So this will only take place really on 2 different scenarios right now. That's if the California roadmap in San Bernardino County kind of goes backwards and puts us in stage 2A, then, are you guys hear me okay? Okay, we would be on that. And then also maybe once we've opened, and if we get any COVID cases, any things like that going on, we may have to go down to a distance learning for some period of time. So the distance learning, those of you that are returning, it's very similar to what we kind of put together on the fly, which I think our teachers did a fantastic job. But we have been throughout the summer already looking at that. We are already kind of mapping out what it's going to look like for next year, because we always want to improve. We always want to take one step up. So 100% of instruction will be performed virtually and daily if we do go on distance learning. As like we did before, we will make sure all students have availability to devices, and enrichment opportunities will still take place. We'll still have our enrichment classes. Really, the two main things that will be changing is actually the grading and attendance. We will kind of be transitioning back into our grading traditionally, where students, it's not going to be a no-fail, credit or no-fail like it was in the younger grades. We will actually be giving grades in our core subjects. Attendance will be monitored in class, but also things that students have been working on will get turned in. We had a lot of that doing the Google Classroom with the older students, not so much for the younger ones, but if we happen to become in distance learning, we will be requiring things to be turned in. And like I said, we will still do 100% of instruction. This happens all the time. We incorporate science and social studies into our ELA standards. And again, that will be taking place just like we did before. So I think I hit everything, Dr. Cognander. What do you think? Did I hit it all?
Did you get to talk a little bit about enrichment that we'll continue to provide?
Yes, that? Enrichments will continue like we did before. We'll make sure the students get that.
Yeah, so to our new families, I noticed some names there for new families. Welcome as well. I know you did not participate in our 2019-20 distance learning program, but this also gave you, Ms. Valenta just kind of gave you a crash course on what that entailed. We provided daily instruction. We provided enrichment. Daily instruction, it meant live instruction. So kids were able to interact with their teachers daily. So a lot of what we did in the spring will continue with some of the upgrades, I guess we can call them, or nuance changes that Ms. Valenta spoke of. Thank you.
Right, and it would be like the twice a day.
Correct. That
we did. So that's when we're talking daily, not just once, twice a day. We would be with the kids.
Yeah, excellent. So those are sort of the highlights of distance learning, where 100% of our students are learning from home. And you notice by the stages that we looked at earlier where that might be true, and the context in which it might be true as well, as far as if there's a case in our community and so on, or if things worsen in the state and in the local area, then we may be directed towards that. So next we have a hybrid learning model.
And that would be me. Welcome, everybody. I know that this is going to be a lot to take in, so bear with us. As Dr. Cognetta stated in the beginning, stage 2B is what we feel like we are pretty securely in right now. We would be, as we move into a stage 3, we would still be looking at this hybrid learning model. And where it says campus is open, that first bullet point, the reason the asterisk is there is because campus will be open, but in a modified situation where only 50% of our kids would be coming to campus on any one day. So there we would be able to do that physical distancing within the classroom. We would see probably 15 kids in one class, and then the other 15 would be virtual that day. And again, then it's divided, for example, into the cohorts. So that's intended, and I've got an example of what that would look like. So let me go grades 1 through 8 first. The example would be, we're going to continue with school hours that are 8 to 3, same as what we currently have. And remember, please, these are all based on whether or not there's any changes made as we get closer to the opening day of school. Things could change or vary just a little bit. So these are simply examples at this point of the program that we're working on. It would be very similar to a traditional school year. We would have for example, our morning kindergarten would be from 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. And then our TK and afternoon kinder would go from 12 to 3. Now there is a reason for that. little bitty change is because we do have to be responsible for sanitation within the classroom, particularly when students are going to exit and then other students come in. So that gives us that hour to sanitize and put all of those precautions in place for each and every classroom. The other thing that we had discussed is when your student is on campus for one of those cohorts, they would not, for example, the middle school would not be changing classes. It would be teachers coming to their class so that we can make sure that we stay within those precautionary measures of sanitation. Again, devices would be available for all students that require. The traditional grading system would resume, even if our distance learning platform is where we start. That means that we're going to have to be watching attendance as well. So even though a student is virtually, if we have a cohort, for example, cohort A would show up on a Monday and a Wednesday, they would still be responsible for virtual learning and checking into their virtual classrooms the other 3 days of the week. Cohort B then would be the other half of the class that would come in on a Tuesday and Thursday. However, that cohort A would still be responsible for those virtual lessons. We are going to a full school year where all academic subjects are being offered. Attendance would be required again. I just want to restate that because it would be monitored through seat-based and through the virtual learning platform. Our enrichment opportunities, they are going to continue. Some would be those teachers coming into the classrooms, others would be virtual lessons. We're going to make sure that our culture is not interrupted. We know that these other enrichment classes are very important to the ASA students, and it's what continues the connection that we have with them and the continuity of our culture. And I also want to make sure that there is a full understanding that even with this hybrid plan, that we're also making sure that lunches and recesses are staggered so that that physical distancing can be obtained and monitored to ensure all precautions for all kids. And I think, did I leave anything out? I think I got that.
Thank you. As you can see, this one is what's novel for us, right? We finish a year in distance learning and have a pretty solid plan there to build off of. Obviously, we run a traditional school, so we know what that entails. The hybrid learning model is the new introduction of a possibility for us. So this is probably the heaviest lifting of all of them is kind of for all of us to wrap our heads around this. So next we have traditional learning.
Right. So along with the hybrid model, something that you see that carries over is the option for home-based learning. So should, as a parent, you decide that the best thing for your student is to remain home for the full 5 days a week, that will continue to be an option as we move into stage 3 and 4, where our campus would be open for a full seat-based program. And then as Mrs. Lohoff just shared, we do have kind of that asterisk there because we may still have certain health precautions and guidelines provided by public agencies, including potentially, symptom checking, physical distancing, things like that, that may still be in place at that time. We would have, classroom traditional instruction, grading, attendance as we generally expect it to be seen, and then a gradual reopening of activities such as clubs and sports and those things that occur before and after school hours.
Right. So the important takeaway, go ahead, Dr. Martin, I think you're still going.
No, that's all. I'm on the next one too.
Yeah, I think an important takeaway from traditional learning is we all need to be prepared for it to not be an immediate return to what we knew traditional learning entailed. There will still be some precautionary measures that are new that we did not have in place in the past, and now will due to COVID.
And then just across our, any of our educational programs that have been described so far, we will provide, supports for students, as you see on the screen here. So with English language development, we will ensure that students receive designated ELD instruction. And then special education services, we are committed to doing what is best for each student in honoring their IEP, as well as the offer of FAPE. And much like we did before when we were moving from, into our distance learning program, we'll collaborate with colleagues and seek and follow guidance from our SELPA and from the state in a hybrid learning environment for our students. And then with the social emotional learning, that is something that will continue to be an important component of our curriculum. Teachers regularly embed social emotional learning into daily interaction with students, be that conflict resolution, entering and getting into conversations respectfully, respectful disagreements, honoring and understanding one's own emotions, and understanding how our actions are connected to those, things like that. And then we are also incorporating at our PD launch before school starts, some specific training with respect to addressing, worries and concerns that may arise for students with regard to COVID-19 and the experiences surrounding this public health emergency that they've gone through thus far, and that they may feel coming back to campus. Building an inclusive community and a strong culture will continue, and some specific elements of our culture will be mentioned next by Dr. Cognetta and Mrs. Lohoff.
Yes, so, I believe you're up, Ms. Lohoff.
I am. So I'm taking a look here. The first thing I wanted to talk about was Dr. Moreno is exactly right. We've built a very strong community with ASA. One of the very big pieces that makes us as successful as we are, obviously, is our community of volunteers and visitors. During the time that we are in a hybrid model or a distance learning model, volunteers would only be able to help from home. It would not be until we moved into that last stage where the school is open. And it could be, even at that point, that we slowly enter into having volunteers on campus. All of our requirements would be the same. Once we do get to an open campus, we do not want anyone to feel like they don't have the opportunity to volunteer. So that would be something that we really do encourage you to reach out to your teachers next year and say, I'm accustomed to being a volunteer on campus and there frequently. What can I do to help? I can guarantee you there is a need for you. We want to keep you connected to the classroom in that manner. And the continuity of our culture, which is so strong, is very, very important. So please understand, within these guidelines, we are going to do everything we can to keep our parent community engaged as well.
Right, I think I'm up.
You are.
There you go. Okay. So part of our culture and some big events that we have in the beginning of the school is Meet Your Wolf Pack. Those of you that aren't familiar with that, that's when the kids come before school starts. They find out who their teacher is, and we have a little quick greet and meet in front of the classroom.
I think I need the charger. It's going to die.
Oh, I think we need to make sure we get muted.
If you're not muted, could you mute yourself, please? Thank you.
All right. And so we will make sure that happens regardless of how that looks. We won't be able to know until closer to school. So again, throughout the summer, it'd be very important just to keep reading those emails. But we want you to know we do know that's important, and somehow, some way, whether it's virtually or in person, we will make that happen for the students. Another big night is your back to school night, and that's where the teachers are able to talk to the parents regarding everything that's going to be happening, like personally in that classroom that year. And so that will still take place regardless whether it's virtually or in place. I really doubt it would be in place just because we'd have too many families in there, but we'll definitely make sure that happens, maybe in a format like this, but it would be smaller because you'd be with your teacher with 30 parents in there with that. So we'll make sure that happens. And then Mileage Club, another really program that the students love. And no matter what stage we are in the roadmap, we will make sure that that continues. So distance learning, we're doing that virtually. Kids are logging in. And so if we do happen to become on a hybrid situation, students could still log those in on the days that they're possible. We will allow that on campus, just depending on how things look with that. So we do know those are some important things that we might have parents ask questions about. So we wanted to share that tonight. Dr. Cognetta is doing field trips.
Yes, so I get the not so fun news, but we do want to talk a little bit about field trips. Based on the guidelines, field trips are just largely on hold. And so we've made the decision that we're going to hold off on field trips at this time, and we'll reassess if we find ourselves well into traditional instruction. Then we'll have an assessment of whether we can bring them back safely and responsibly for our community. So know that going into the school year, since we are likely going to be not in stage 4 to start the school year, that we probably we will enter the school year without field trips as part of our plan. And so for families who, for example, we were really excited about the overnight trips that we had in 5th, 6th, and 8th grade. Those are also on hold. We are looking at ways in which we can accommodate both our 8th graders that just promoted in the future, as well as the students who are now entering 8th grade. I know that's kind of a rite of passage trip that we're proud of. So we haven't forgot about the students, but we are making the tough decision to at this point hold off on any trips, whether they're day trips or overnight trips. Speaking of, I know some of you on here had promoting 8th graders. So we will be sending correspondence around what that looks like to you shortly, as well as anyone. I think someone's calling me in the middle of my meeting. And for anyone who's looking at at the international trip to Costa Rica, know that the decision right now is to hold off on that and other trips. Ms. Valente, anything to add on that? Details I may have missed out?
No, you did great.
Thanks. Great. So, and again, we see your questions. Some of them are just going to be a little lengthier. So thank you for putting them in there. Know that we're going to go back. Anything that's kind of one word response we feel we can, just throw out there, we'll put into the chat box, but know that your questions are being kind of collected and monitored, and we will return to them as well. So thank you for sharing about school culture. This is an important part of who we are. We know that, and we all contributed to creating the culture, and we want to make sure that that sort of stays at the forefront of our school, regardless of which model we're in. So let's see. I'm going to talk a little bit about our precautionary measures. Now, this is quite a deep dive, so more information will be going out than I'll share today, but we wanted to make sure you were at least privy to some of the implications of reopening, as far as what will definitely be different, and our precautionary measures as we move to bringing our students back. You can expect temperature checks. This pertains to staff and students upon arrival. So it's a logistical headache, but we are looking at the ways to make this viable for us. So you notice that we're not the first to talk about temperature checks. You've probably experienced them yourself, depending on where you've arrived to. If you've arrived to a doctor's appointment, certain private, restaurants require it. So this is becoming quite common and will be a part of coming to school as well. There are sort of two aspects to this. There's a kind of a passive and active approach. We do ask that you're monitoring temperatures at home as well. And we're aware that, popping some aspirin or something could bring that temperature down, but we do need you to look at this differently. And we need your help here to make sure that the checks at home are being done. And if your child does exhibit that symptom, that you respond accordingly, which we'll share some more about as well. We are equipping ourselves with the appropriate PPE, so including masks and sanitation materials and devices as well. So all of that is taking place. I'll share a little bit more about that momentarily, including signage as well, just to help the campus flow in a way in which physical distancing is promoted and so on. We have protocols then for individuals displaying symptoms, including designating an isolation room for students so that, or staff if needed, so that we can respond appropriately to possible case. The protocols also include times in which students may be asked to stay home. I saw this question earlier, so it's kind of pertaining here. If there's a need for a student to be quarantined from school for a long period of time, we will do our best to make sure that that student is getting a continuity of their education. So one of the positives of having, a positive, not one of, but a positive of having the option of the stay home learning option, the home, is that we can immediately move kids into that even temporarily if that's needed because of a COVID case. So a couple things to consider, just so you're aware of. So if we learn of confirmed cases in our community, we will be reporting them both to our authorizer and to Chino Valley, as well as the San Bernardino County Department of Public Health. And based on the recommendation, the Department of Public Health will make recommendations as to what we do from there. And they would dictate to us the number of days, for example, that a student may need to quarantine. So we'll follow their guidance there in the case of a positive case. In another scenario that could potentially come to light is, while conducting these active symptom checks at school, if we learn that a student has a fever and other COVID symptoms, the student will be isolated and will contact parent for immediate pickup. And families of students who are around the symptomatic child will be notified as well. So we'll maintain confidentiality, but we will notify families that they potentially were exposed to somebody exhibiting symptoms. So again, these are the required sort of protocols that will take place. So in regards to symptoms, so reporting to school after illness, there's some criteria that needs to be met for any positive case. We're still getting clarification on this, but currently some of the criteria that needs to be met to return to school are symptom-free for a designated time of 72 hours. We believe that there's going to be further guidance on that. So know that we're just looking at the current guidelines and still asking for further clarification. The health office, student will need to report to the health office for screening as well. And the student must be fever-free without the use of medication or improvement of respiratory symptoms, for example, and at least 10 days have passed since symptoms first appeared. And what we're seeking clarification on is, in addition, do we also need a healthcare professional signing off on the student? So that's an either or. So it might be an and or, that's an and or. It could be both are required, or we're seeking clarification if it's one or the other. So again, as you can see, some things are just evolving as we go and we're needing clarity. But just wanted to kind of take you a little bit into the deep dive of what it could look like, both for confirmed cases and then students and so on exhibiting symptoms. We will take it obviously seriously for you, for our kids, for the entire community. And we know it's a learning curve. We're allocating resources, limited resources to this, but we will be prepared as we were when we had to close in March. The other thing, and this came up, is, what does it look like as far as at school regarding PPE? We are at this point, we will be requiring staff to wear shields and or masks. We're going to encourage students to do the same, and we will be prepared if they do not. That is a likely possibility for a lot of our kids to not wear masks. We will encourage it, especially since it really is challenging for kids to physically distance themselves. We know this. So as we are explicitly teaching those precautionary procedures to kids and reinforcing them, we are also mindful that we will do not expect necessarily 100% compliance on that from our students. Again, we'll encourage and we'll do our best to keep everybody safe and physically distanced, but we'll need everybody's help on that as well. And team, on that, anything you want to add?
I'm good.
Okay. So as you can see, in regards to the precautionary measures, there's a lot more. We kind of gave you the tip of the iceberg in some scenarios, but do know that this will be the area of new learning for us. But I'm going to ask as a community that we do take this seriously and know that there will be mistakes. I think it'll happen on all levels, and we will seek to return to the protocols and continue to use every opportunity to assess and grow and make sure that we're keeping everyone in our community as safe as we can. As far as some of the PPE, we learned today that Chino Valley has included us in their district-wide bulk purchase of PPE equipment. So this is the first sort of dispatch that we'll be getting that pertains to us. So notice that there's an inclusion of masks, a variety of masks, including student masks, shields for teachers, hand sanitizer, etc., N95s, and some thermometers. We are adding to this list to make sure that we don't find ourselves at a point where we run out of PPE. Obviously, with schools reopening, the supply chains need to kind of be prepared for that. It's going to be pretty large. As more users are out there, kids and teachers and staffs that run schools, one of the conditions of reopening is that you have to be equipped with PPE. So naturally, this is something we got to stay on top of. Some of these things are consumable or just, after a while are no longer useful. So with that, that's a bit of the deep dive in regards to the precautionary measures we're taking. I know we have some questions that we're going to get to. We want to honor that we threw a lot at you, and there's still a lot more being determined and so on. We know there's a lot of competing factors. We have parents who are returning to work and might find themselves in a situation where their ASA is in a hybrid model. And yeah, we're not alone in that. That's happening in many instances. We are going to do our best to see what we can do within the parameters to accommodate our families. But, and I'm speaking specifically to the hybrid model here, right? A hybrid school model is the tough one because based on the stages, that means many of you are able to return to work, not have to work remotely, right? But for schools, it means we are really needing to be in a hybrid model and limit the amount of kids at school at any one time. So the hybrid model does present that dilemma of how do you accommodate families who have to go to work, but whose kids are at school only 2 days out of the week. And truthfully, there's just not a clear answer yet. We know that our partners like Think Together and partners who use the school that are not us, the school, their green light will be after ours. It won't be concurrent. So if that changes, then we'll notify you, and at least we'll know we'll have some options. But this is definitely one of the headaches is how that, and we struggle with this and we grapple with this, and we don't know how at this point yet how to. We don't yet know how to accommodate a campus that can only have half of its kids on it, right? And use the same place to accommodate families who need to find space for their kids. So we will continue working hard and making sure we can do our best to answer that very tough question that should be out there. So team, before we jump into the questions, Ms. Valenta, Dr. Moreno, Ms. Lohoff, anything from you guys?
No, just we've got a bunch of questions and a poor man on the screen holding his head a lot.
I know.
You might want to go ahead and forward beyond him.
Who is that? Jake, one of the Jakes?
Yeah.
We're going to stop sharing and see each other's faces and discuss some Q&A.
There we go.
Great.
We could reiterate, the questions come up a few times about will masks be worn at school? Staff will be wearing masks at any time that they are in class with students. We are encouraging that children wear masks. However, we cannot require them to. So for anyone and everyone who asked that question, I hope that brought a little bit of clarity to that. The question has arisen a few times, Dr. Cognetta, about how children would be able to play together and interact.
Yeah, so the idea of having, we intend to have staggered recesses, right? These are the things that will be taught. If your child is at school in a hybrid model or in a traditional model, then there will be a type of recess. Might be fewer students than we've had in the past in our recesses. That's what we'll look at. But we do want to have opportunities, which is hugely important for kids to have play. We also know we're not naive. Young kids changing habits of running up and being close to one another and hugging one another. These are behaviors that possibly need to be reshaped. We don't expect 100% compliance on day one, but we will create the conditions for fewer kids to be interacting with one another. We're discussing things like traveling less around campus. We may very well have most, if not all, enrichment classes come to your child's classroom to minimize travel and use of different spaces and so on. These are things being discussed. PE, in a hybrid model, will have fewer kids, which allows play and physical activity to happen with fewer people to interact. So in short, we don't want to deny kids play, but I'd be lying if we said it's going to look identical to what it did in the past, right? You can expect some changes on there that will help adhere to some of the guidance that we're getting. I want to answer this last question, and then you guys, just because I've seen it, it's something on my mind now. With a hybrid model, will students attend a full day like normal, or will it be shortened? Great question, and our plan is that it will be a full day. And we're going to take full advantage of having them on there. And when I say full day, I'm talking first grade on up. Our TK and kinder students will remain in their half-day program, even in a hybrid model. It was shared earlier. Their time might be shifted to allow for deep cleaning between the AM and the PM, but we're not shortening the day in a hybrid model for kids. We're going to take full advantage of the time that we have them on campus. Thank you for that question, Cindy.
One of the other questions was, if parents are at work and not able to be with students in class, will lessons be recorded? And yes, we have full plans to do that, so that everyone would be able to have access to the academic content. And then the next question was, Dr. Cognetta, will families with multiple students have all students in one family placed in the same cohort?
Our plan is to put, in a hybrid model, our plan is to put all children from the same family on the same cohort. That is our plan. If we find ourselves in a situation where it can't happen, then I'll come back and share that with you. But our plan is to do exactly that. Yeah. So
another question is if home-based learning will be made available on a temporary time for, like, if a family member was exposed to COVID.
Yeah, so this is what I think I tried to answer a similar question earlier, but yes, because we will be having that program available, we believe that if a child needs to temporarily go into that, they wouldn't just be shut out of school. They would have a way to continue, to have educational continuity in that program. I do want to speak about the optional program. There's some questions on it. So home-based learning will be available. We believe right now our decision that is the only time it wouldn't be offered is if we're all in distance learning. If we're all in distance learning, we're all in distance learning. But if we're in either hybrid or traditional, then for the 2020-2021 school year, right now our decision is to offer it as an option for the entire year, regardless of either of those two models. So several of you have asked an iteration of that, I believe. And then yes, for those of you who select that model because we find out we're going to be in hybrid or we're going to be in traditional, and that's not going to work for you, we can't have it malleable or kind of a revolving door. We're going to ask that we'll be committing to to it at a trimester at a time. The only exceptions to that are the question that Dr. Moreno just shared. When we have to, together we have to put a child into that temporarily. Other than that, it's something that, you're committing to for the trimester. We can't have, you can see there's a lot going on, and we won't be able to just on the fly change a student's placement from the optional home-based model to a classroom-based model, unless we all make that shift, based on the stages. Yeah. I've seen the question, concerned about the distance learning for parents at work. It was extremely hard for my work schedule with required attendance and homework. Will there be support available to those students? Yes, we're looking at putting all our resources towards that, right? Our proctors, our paraprofessionals, teacher having office hours, all the things that we can do from a distance to still support families who are having to work while their kids are learning from home. We live the challenges of this. I'm proud of what we were able to do in the last few months of school, but I know it wasn't without challenges for many of us. And so we've learned from that. We'll continue to look at what pieces we can put in place that we're not putting in place currently to support you from a distance.
Dr. Cogna, do you want to address the after school thing together? There was a couple of questions if that's going to be open and available.
Based on what we know now, they will lag behind us. And I don't know by how long, a week, 2 weeks, a month, I don't know. Bottom line is campus reopens to school first and then outside groups second. We are trying to have Think Together be as close to our start as possible because our families obviously rely on that. But the way things are working, not just in Chino Valley, but across many school districts, is outside groups are not getting access to the school at the same time as the schools. So my hope is that a group like Think Together, there's some clarity, or a revision to that, and those groups are able to kind of just start when we start. Yeah. Okay,
Dr. Cognetta, there's a question in regards to, and it's in regards to explaining whether these things are mandated by public health or the guidelines. Could you repeat the very beginning of the meeting just briefly to how we're getting this direction? Sure. So yeah, just back out. And all of this information is being presented to our board, right, for their input and so on. And the local guidelines, so San Bernardino County health guidelines are probably the largest influence into our plan because it's the most local guidance we get aside from our authorizer. We are in agreement with our authorizer to mirror our plans. So if Chino Valley is in hybrid and what they're calling blended learning, that's the equivalent for us is hybrid. If Chino Valley is in blended learning, they're looking at the same data that we are. The same data is driving their decision, so we will end in the same decision as them. And much like for us, it's not their choice. They're following the guidance that's given to us through the roadmap, and how that's being, how the data is showing up at a more local level, like Western San Bernardino County. So you won't see too much variance in school districts and charter schools in our area. There might be some nuanced changes, but for the most part, you're going to see a lot of similarity between Ontario, Montclair, Chino Valley, us, Sycamore Prep, and so on. There will be some differences, right? I know Norco is looking at a different entry plan or start plan, but we're all looking at the same data. We're all getting the same guidance, and locally we are dealing with the same local data. So you can expect us to kind of be more aligned than not. Did that help, Ms. Lohoff? I didn't see the question, so I was just building off what you said. So. Yes. No. The question was, where are we getting these guidelines? Okay. So very clear. Thank you. Yeah. One of the other questions was the hybrid model, if parents could vote for their cohort choice. Yeah, okay, so vote for the cohort choice? That's what they're asking, yes. So at this point, our answer is probably not. So we're going to have a cohort A or cohort B in a hybrid model.
Cohort A could potentially be coming to school on Monday, Wednesdays. Cohort B could be coming to school on Tuesday, Thursdays. At this, I'm not going to commit to having that be a preference because naturally we wouldn't be able to honor 100% of our families' preferences. We're going to prioritize keeping families together first, but it'd be really hard to tell you that if you want Monday, Wednesday, you'll get it. That's going to be tough. So thank you for asking. That's an important question. We can imagine it won't be something we can keep that promise forever to everybody.
Another question is if we'll be actively monitoring students for symptoms while they are attending school.
So we have the active screening upon arrival, and then you can imagine all of us will be on a more heightened awareness of what we're looking for. We don't anticipate doing temperature checks at coming in from recess or coming in from lunch or anything like that. We do upon arrival. So for most kids at the beginning of the school day, and so on. But yes, we will all be more vigilant on looking for symptoms and having, and then executing the protocols for what to do should we see the symptoms. We need that from you too, right? We need that from all of us. So in that sense, yes, but right now I'm not envisioning a middle of the morning stopping and checking everyone for symptoms and going back to learning and then doing it again at 2 p.m. or something like that. Not anything on that scale or anything remotely close, but rather being more vigilant on what to look for.
And then also a question about if the questions, the kind of screening questions, will they be all the ones that are recommended by the CDC?
All of the ones by the CDC, likely not. If you watch what the recommendations from the CDC are and how they trickle down to local, not 100% of those are transferring over. Keep in mind, I shared this in a different, I think at a coffee recently, the CDC does not run schools. They're not in the business of operating schools. They don't consider all the factors that we have to when running a school. They're in the business of helping stop pandemics, right? So their guidelines don't consider our budgets, the parameters or the constraints that we're operating within. So not all of the guidelines from the CDC are viable for us. So it's not the driving guidance for us. Our local, our work with our authorizer, and then the county department of public health, we lean on them more.
Another question that came in was regarding playground equipment, and I probably can help with that a little bit. I'm going to use kindergarten as an example. If we have students out there on the playground equipment that are following one another down the slide, then sanitation precautions are probably pretty unrealistic. So I would imagine at this time, as long as there's a physical distance that we're trying to encourage and support, then something like the slide may not be of use to the students from the beginning of when we get this here school open again. In the meantime, kinder again, things like their tricycles and stuff like that, where they can monitor and help physically distance those kids and then turn around and wipe them down before another child gets on. I would say that not all of the equipment would be restricted or kept from the children in the beginning. So it's going to be that thing that we have to look at. It's yet another level of precaution that we have to take a good look at. We want the kids socializing. We want to try to teach them that we know that this piece has been lacking for them and that they're very, very excited to see their friends and that sort of thing. It's a matter of helping teach them the new protocols, which I know to a child seems like a lifetime. To the adults, we want them safe. We want them to be able to continue to come to school, and we want to be able to provide them that social interaction, even if it's a bit restricted, because it's a very, very important piece of their childhood right now. And it's what brings some feeling of security to them. So we are looking at playground equipment and all that other stuff too, and teaching procedures to kids and how we can possibly support them. So socially and emotionally, they're getting that support as well.
I see a question on, Jonas Salmon's question, will those that choose distance learning be part of a regular classroom of 30, or they be with a separate group who choose distance learning? It's a good question, and we've gone back and forth on this, but our plan is that every teacher has 30 students assigned to them, or rostered to them. right? Fourth grade teacher has 30 fourth graders rostered to them. We will learn that some of those 30 students may choose the home option. That teacher will see those students still as part of their 30, will be responsible for the aspect of their education, that they will be responsible for still within their 30s. So we're not creating a separate cohort of our distance learning kids and then our hybrid or traditional based kids. The way to create a classroom community, to keep the kids connected, they will be a part of the class that they are rostered to. You guys want to add on that, or is that?
That's good.
There is one I want to add on a little bit. We don't know until we get this data what parents are looking at. So say, for example, in first grade, we literally have 60 parents that are choosing distance learning. Then that may look different than in second grade, where you only have 15 kids choosing. So there may be, if we have a whole class of 30, they may be the group that's on distance learning completely. That's just maybe one scenario. That's why this information that we gather from all of you is so critical for us to be able to plan exactly and be able to let you know, like you said, mid-July, what we're really looking at by gathering this data.
Correct. Yeah, thanks for adding that. So that's why we need the data, right, to help us with that. But we want to avoid as much as possible these different kind of factions of the school, right? That creates a lot of challenges in building community, and it creates logistical challenges for us when things change, right? So that's why we're trying to avoid it. There have been several questions around home-based curriculum. There's not a separate curriculum for our different models, or even the optional one. We will stay uniform in our curriculum, and we will make it available appropriately for the different models. But we're not looking at adopting a separate home-based curriculum. We are going to be using our board-adopted curriculum regardless of model. Yeah.
Question about cleaning and sanitizing. This one's specific to the restroom, but maybe you could speak to the classrooms as well.
Yeah, so this is, our custodians have been included in some of the early trainings by Chino Valley on disinfecting and sanitizing and so on. So we will mirror what Chino Valley does in those respects. Obviously, you can imagine now we are looking at ensuring that any surfaces that kids have to interact with, sinks and so on, are being cleaned more frequently. So our custodial staff is looking at that. Also making sure that proper cleaning materials are being utilized for that. So it's something that they're very much on, and has changed the nature of their work for sure.
There's a question asking if we're requiring students and staff to be checked for COVID 2 weeks prior to school starting.
No, that's not been discussed as part of reopening. I'm gonna let you guys choose the questions to answer.
I know, I'm looking.
Trying to get them all.
Yeah.
There is a question in regards to the best way to contact trace is if there is a suspected case, and to minimize the spread of COVID is, if at all possible, to keep the same students together in the classroom at all times throughout the school year. So my guess is that, and I think this is our goal, once your child is in a cohort A, they would remain in cohort A, so that those are the same people that they are with on a consistent basis, particularly if tracing had to become an issue for us. And yes, we're going to do our very best to do that. Dr. Cognetta already mentioned that we would have most of our enrichment teachers most likely going into the classrooms to avoid those students from changing classrooms, to help make sure that we secure that.
Yeah, and we had talked about previously, before all this, as our middle grades was growing, and bring on another teacher, and we have 120 students. We were, looking forward to the possibility of having students have a different first period makeup of their classroom than a second period, and so on, much like they would get at a larger, at a larger school. We're going to table that for now. We have to keep groups together and so on. So we'll probably return to, if you're a seventh grader and you start your day with Miss P with 14 other kids in a hybrid model, or 29 other kids in a traditional model, you are likely going to be with those kids for the throughout your day. That is more aligned to the guidelines than what you might see on a typical middle school in different times.
There's a question on here about if there's a preference for the type of mask that they attempt their child to wear.
Yeah, that's a great question, right? And just one of the areas where I feel we're continually reading about, and I know we're seeing a lot of different information on those, but we don't have a required mask type. The only thing is if you are having your child wear a mask, the point of wearing the mask is that it's covering their mouth and nose, right? So I think my preference would be the right size, first and foremost, and then we'll do our best as we have them in school, right, to make sure that they're taking care of it and so on. We don't want kids dropping their mask, stepping on them, and putting them back on their faces, right? There's a whole world of new habits we have to help our kids learn and so on. But as far as any recommendations, again, size is key for that at this point for kids.
And labeled.
Labeled would be nice. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. Great.
There's a couple of questions around whether when the home learning option is available, and that is in either when we're in the hybrid model or in the traditional model. Either of those, their parents can opt for the home-based learning.
Correct. Yeah. I see a question on there. Will there still be a minimum day in any or all of these models? If we're in the traditional learning model, that's when we will be in. We'll have a minimum day. It's the only option in which we have a minimum day is the traditional model. I'll take this one. The last question that just came in, just because I see it now. Will ASA still be planning on increasing the student population as initially intended in the charter? Yes, we are. I'm not sure if you were, Natalie, if you were on throughout it, but I referred to our 810 students. All of these plans are based on are expecting 810 students at ASA. So yes, we're still increasing to that number. We won't go beyond it. We don't have a plan to do that. We expect to be at 810. No problem, Natalie. There's a lot of info we threw at you. It's easy to miss some things for sure. What else are we seeing, guys?
There was a clarifying question about whether hybrid is a for sure thing or is it just a possibility?
It's a for sure thing, and we're in that stage, right? That's the model for the particular stage. If we're in 2B, for example, 2A, 2B, or just getting into 3, right? So on the roadmap, that's when it's for sure. We don't know. We're in mid-June. We're talking about a little less than 2 months out, and so we can't for sure commit to how we'll be opening on day 1. What we can commit to is the reopening will be one of the 3 options we shared today, and it will be tied to the stage that we're in. So my recommendation is, stay connected with us. We'll continue to put information out. You can find information on which stage the state is in and the county's on the state's COVID-19 website. So that is, and I'll throw the URL in here as soon as I get a chance in the chat box. And that way you'll have a sense of what's to come regarding where we'll open.
So there's also says, I'm concerned about distance learning. Parents that work, and with homework and everything, will there be support available to those students? And so I'll just say that our staff and teachers are going to do everything we can to ensure that students are continuing to progress and provide interventions and additional support as needed with our students. So this, in the same way that we will be monitoring students' academic progress in a traditional on-site setting, we'll also be monitoring their progress in a hybrid or distance learning model and ensure that interventions are provided for them.
Yeah. Sorry, if you're attending and not muted, I'm going to ask you to just mute yourself so that others can hear. Thank you.
I know Mrs. Leonard, and it's a very important question. Will you need a crossing guard for our kids in the coming year? I believe you, but I'll let you address that.
Yeah, thanks for asking that. Yeah, I mean, how could we not have our favorite? So obviously there won't be necessary distance learning. We have looked at sort of the pickup and drop off so that we can still safely get kids on and off campus and then keep the physical distancing. So Julie, I'll just ask that if kids are on campus, I'm sure there will be a need for a crossing guard. So we can talk about that. And given that it's off campus and, he's not necessarily having to be in close proximity to kids and in a close space, that is likely an area where we can treat it, specifically to the fact that he's out in the street, playing an important volunteer function for us. That's very different than a parent who wants to come into the back of the classroom. And as helpful as they want to be, it is different, right, in these times. So Julie, I will keep you posted on what that will look like, but I'd like to, if we're having kids come onto campus, I would love to have them greeted by your dad. So.
He wants to be there, so.
Hey, you're supposed to be muted.
I know, but I wanted you to know he wants.
I know he wants to be there, and we're very honored to have him greet our kids. So that would be my goal. It is a different scenario than, again, like I shared, than volunteering in classrooms and so on. That's just, we can't really play with that. We got to be real clean on that. But
your mask requirement and all of that. So just know that.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. There is a question regarding will the school continue to accept new student applications after next year?
Yeah. So you could, a family could apply right now, and they would be added to the wait list now. So that hasn't been changed at all. We're not messing with our enrollment number. We're not going beyond 810. We don't have any plans of lowering it. The timing of all this, just didn't disrupt our plan to grow our school to 810. In fact, we held our lottery before we had any idea of the implications of COVID. So we committed to 150 additional families. We wouldn't pull that back, we have no plans of not honoring our commitment to be at 810. So we have no plans of not doing that. So, yeah.
And there's a question about kind of the health office and disinfection there, as well as, or disinfecting there. And then is there going to be like a separate place for well and sick kids or kids who are suspected of having COVID?
Yeah, that's called, it is what it is. It's being referred to as an isolation room, right? And that's to keep kids isolated who potentially have COVID, or staff member away, isolated from others. That is a guideline we'll take seriously, and we'll dedicate that space. Again, I know there's questions about cleaning and so on. Know that our custodian staff, and additionally adding another custodian to support these efforts has taken place, and any surfaces that are frequently contacted will be getting more routine cleaning.
Could you also explain how the students would be having lunch? The question is whether it would be in their classrooms or if they actually get to go out to the tables as usual.
Yeah, so our preference is that they can be at the tables. Keep in mind that if we're physically distancing kids, then that lunch will look different as well. And we will either be staggering our lunches further to have fewer kids out there, or we will be using space a little bit more creatively around campus to physically distance kids so that they can have lunch. We are absolutely trying to avoid lunches in classrooms. Again, if we find ourselves in a situation where we have to do it, then we'll do it, but know that we're trying to avoid that. It's good for everybody. Get the kids into a different space. They're already being limited on their travel around campus. So if we can provide that, we will, and we're looking into that as well. Which, just as I shared that, just wanted you all to be aware. Normally, what we try to do is we come up with especially such far-reaching plans. We talk to them about the team that's involved develops the plans. We share them with our staff first, and then we take it out to the community. Unfortunately, most of our staff is off now for summer, and so a lot of our staff are on this call and hearing many of these aspects for the first time too. So know that there's just the plans are being developed in real time, and a lot of the information is fresh for everybody. So we know there's going to be a lot of questions, and there's still plenty of work to be done. But why I sleep at night is because we did the hard part overnight. We went from March 13th closing school to March 16th, we're ready to go. And now we actually are given some time. So I know we'll be ready on day one. Just can't tell you what day one looks like. There's a lot of uncertainty at this time. Yeah.
There was another question about parents volunteering in class.
Yeah.
And absolutely, we want parent volunteers. However, until we get back to a stage 4 and a full traditional school plan, volunteering is going to look a little bit different. And we encourage parents to volunteer, and our teachers will be reaching out. I'm sure there's a lot of things that they really could use you to do from a distance perspective.
Yeah.
So we want to keep the continuity of our culture strong.
Yeah.
And then can you explain to, like, you know, to the extent that we have this nailed down, what a typical virtual class day would look like?
You asking me?
Well, I'll start and then you guys could jump in.
Yeah,
Okay.
we all can get to that.
Yeah, what we had kind of talked about today was that it would mirror what the kids are doing in the classroom, and teachers would we'd try to make it be like kind of like a live stream of a lesson going on, so that kids can log in and view that lesson in real time. And it would also be available after, if students are not able to watch during the day, so the devices would go home. And yeah, we talked about some of the logistics of that for teachers having, you know, microphones to make sure they can be recorded as they're moving around the classroom, so that the at-home experience is a lot like the classroom experience, and that is good for students, so that they're maintaining that same, you know, moving along at the same pace as students who are in the classroom, and, you know, when you're at home. And as well, if, you know, at the trimester, family decides that it's the right choice to move back into the classroom, it's not too abrupt of a change, because they will have been moving along with the classroom.
You did very well.
All right.
Yeah. Can I add a few things in there, just to know there were some other
Go for it.
questions regarding like the time that was spent, and even probably for some new TK and kindergartner parents coming in. I could speak from experience as a kindergarten teacher that our kids did very well with virtual learning. We made the best of what we could. As teachers, we kind of looked what worked best for our classes. So like I had an AM class, so I had 2 virtual, about 30 minutes, you know, a 9 a.m. and 11 o'clock groups, you know, or a PM went a little bit later because they were used to coming into school later. And it is something, again, it's like a routine that we teach, but the kids did very well on it. They're actually more resilient than we probably were more worried about. So when you're talking about a virtual time, like I have a question about a first grade, about focusing. Even if a kid is standing up and kind of moving a pen, they are focusing. That's their focus, you know? So maybe they're not sitting still, and looking at that computer. In your eyes, you may think they're not focusing and taking it in, but students will do that. So I would say typically about 30 minutes twice a day, we had virtual meetings. When we're talking about live streaming it, when we're giving a lesson, we're really kind of talking about the core instruction, not the entire day of the classroom. So they would just be streaming in maybe during the core instruction part, and then doing the independent work just like they would be doing in class, kind of guided practice and independent work. Then the students that are home would be virtually doing that independently after they watch the live streaming, or if they're not available to watch the live streaming and they're recording, they could just turn it off and do that work as well. There was also a mention about homework in one of the questions. Will they get homework from virtually? When they're on the cohorts and they're on their off days, it's not going to be broken down as classwork and homework. It will be just work provided during that time. So I don't think it will be necessarily homework. And then students that are leaving that day actually will be getting work to do the following day when they are off campus for that day. Hopefully that clarified a few questions that we had.
Yeah. And yeah, thanks for kind of walking us through that. And if the spring taught us anything, it taught us a lot. But, you know, definitely validated that we're a very diverse community. You know, we had requests from parents who wanted more from us for their kids. And others were telling us, hey, can we kind of bring it down a little bit? I have to work from home and teach my kid. And so we did our best to accommodate that entire range of expectations, right? Families that are asking more from us, some that needed us to kind of tone it down so that they can keep their homes sane and functioning in this time. So all of those experiences are going into these plans. And not to mention the impact on staff, so they can be at their best for you as well. We're all taking on a lot. We're all in an area that nobody on this call has a wealth of experience within. What we have is a short window of experience in the spring that really put our model on the map as one that did reach a variety of learners, a variety of families. So we have a lot of positivity to build on. And now we're going into areas that we don't get to decide, right? And we know have real implications for families. The hybrid model is the one that haunts me because it, like I said earlier, it falls right in the trap of when people return to work, but kids have to be in this hybrid model. The extreme models are a little bit more doable because distance learning probably means most of us are working from home, which is far better than, not being there when your kid's trying to learn. So, we're going to keep putting our heads together on what we can do to support those families. Any of these situations, if not dealt with correctly, will only widen the achievement gap between different students, and we're not interested in doing that. We want to raise our struggling students up. We want to give students who require additional supports those supports, and we want to challenge kids who are well beyond their grade level as far as the content standards. So and that's just the academic side of things, right? So as you can see, there's a lot going into it, and I'm confident that it's a disposition of the staff that's going to make it happen. Every decision has been made in the best interests of children with the constraints that are given to us. That's not changing. That will be the case as we go forward. I expect missteps. I don't think we will get everything right in every turn. We will be making decisions we've never had to make before, and we will get plenty right, and we will get some things wrong. And so that's why we ask for grace for one another. But keep in mind, if you were here in 2019-20, that you were a part of a distance learning that never skipped a day, right? You were given the opportunity your child was given the opportunity to be a part of their school every school day that was originally calendared. We didn't take time to prepare to change gears. We were not caught by surprise as far as being able to support kids. And our program only got better as we continue to watch it and so on. So we're using that now with a little bit more time to put together the best program that we can for our kids, given the constraints. So I just want to make sure that was the case, because I know as when you look at the questions and you're like us, what about this? What about this? Know that we use these questions to really kind of guide what are we not thinking of that our families are thinking of, and how can we accommodate. We'll be real transparent when the answer is very clear and it's this, knowing that it might not be a popular answer, but that's, we're prepared for that. But know that we will grapple with all the things that you're introducing to us so that we can do our best to meet the needs of this diverse community. So that was a little bit of a tangent I went on. I'm not abandoning some questions. I know there are some we haven't answered. Just a time check, that PAC meeting starts in a little bit more than half an hour. So we're going to do our best to answer any questions, especially if there was a similar question, then we may not get to your specific question just because it may appear similar to us as earlier ones. But we will try to kind of pinpoint some of the ones we haven't answered yet.
There's a question about drinking fountains. Will they be open, and if children should be in their own water bottle?
Yeah, the more sort of isolating and distancing we could build as our habits, the better. So at this point, I'll get clarity around whether we should close the drinking fountains or not. But again, if you can have your kid show up with a water bottle, and that might be better. And even our water filtering stations, they don't need the bottle does not need to touch the spigots for the water comes out. So those can be used until further notice. At least those should be used.
And please make sure they're labeled.
Label everything.
Label everything.
Yeah.
About how soon will we be able to? This is one of the questions. Will we be able to make sure parents understand what stage we're entering?
Yeah. So it's an unclear science, right? Because things could change at a moment's notice, and if you're like me, you're just saturated in all this COVID data, and you don't know, how to wrap your head around a lot of it. So we think that if things are moving in the positive direction towards stage 4, then 2 weeks out of the beginning of school is I'm comfortable saying that what stage we're in 2 weeks out is likely going to drive where we're open. If we have overwhelmingly encouraging data that we're moving toward in that direction before 2 weeks out, then you might hear from us that we are opening in a particular model. But what we have to be ready for is the quick jump backwards, right? If things worsen and and then across the state or locally, stronger restrictions are put in place and so on, and more distancing, et cetera, then we have to be prepared to abruptly kind of change directions. So I say that abruptly because we will actually move slow in the more positive direction, but we will move quickly in a more concerning direction, right? That's just to be cautious. So the short of it is, we think 2 weeks out from the start of school, we will confidently be able to share what the opening will look like. If the data is overwhelmingly going in one direction, then sooner could be a possibility. But give us the 2 week window, and I think we'll have a sense of that. I hope it's sooner, but again, these times are tricky to make any kind of promise. What else did you guys see up there?
I don't.
I think we've addressed everything. If somebody feels like a question was completely not addressed, if you could retype it into the bottom there, because I believe we've addressed all of the topics. It says, if school is taking all this, taking health and safety measures, but we as families don't keep them at home, how will we keep the same path?
So if I understand that question correctly, is really how can the school account for families that are not being cautious at home, and whatever that may look like, right? Whether it's, I don't know what it would look like, but true, there's the situation where that's the case. The things that we have built in are the daily screenings, the distancing, the encouragement to wear masks. These are the things. They're designed assuming that people are infected, right? They're assuming that's how they're built. They're assuming that to stop the spread, you have to assume that people have COVID. So we can't control what happens at home. We will do our best to educate our community on what we're doing at school and what they could possibly do at home, but we're well aware we don't control the conditions at home. We do want to know if there's a positive case in the house. We do want to know, because that means that the child is possibly infected, and so that's something we'll ask families to do. So there's a reason that hashtag in this together is so popular this day. It really does take all of us to kind of address this. So we'll do our part by staying up to date on the guidelines and encouraging certain habits and behaviors. But we will need your help. So I think that's a great question, and it does kind of draw the line on what we can be responsible for and where we need our community to be responsible. What we want to do is send your kids home safely every day, unless you're hearing what we're doing to make that happen. So we ask for your part as well. Thank you so much for asking that question. I think that was an important one. They've all been important.
And some comments also from parents just iterating that it is up to parents at home too. And then the junior high enrichment classes and moving around, or will they be stationed in one classroom? And we're looking at them being probably stationed in one classroom with teachers coming to them, because that will minimize kind of potential exposure.
Yeah.
And then what about any impact on campus security?
Secured in regards to.
I don't. That's all the question is.
Okay. I'm not sure if I'm following correctly, but everything else that we're responsible for doesn't go away, right? We will still, all of our staff will continue to get their trainings on appropriate protocols and responses for all the things that were already true before COVID. We will do the trainings, on campus security and so on. We don't put those things to the side because of this. We're adding to our plates. That's what's happening here. We all are. So, yeah.
And then,
Go ahead, Kelly.
yeah, sorry, a question about whether they can move, like if a student starts in hybrid, can they move to distance learning at any time of the school year or go the other way around in the programs?
We'll flesh this out further, but our thinking right now is if you commit to if we're going to be in hybrid or traditional and it makes sense for your child to learn from home, we're going to ask that you commit to that for the trimester. We can't have it be fluid. That's just a lot of change that we might not be able to manage well, and everybody will suffer from that. So that's the case. If we as a school have to go to a more distanced program, right? So we have to go from traditional to hybrid, probably go right to distance learning. If we have to go in that direction, then that will be immediate. But the only cases that we're discussing as far as where a student would make a difference is if we know there's a case in the home or the child's infected or whatever it may be is positive, then we would do an immediate, obviously change because that's part of the protocols. But it's not something, where midway through a trimester, you've changed your mind and you're now asking, for us to change and so on. That could be tricky. We'll flesh that out further for you so you have guidance on what that looks like, but know that we're not inclined to make it a very kind of, flexible program. That would be a lot for the school.
And then there's a question about homework, if students will get homework when they're not in school for the hybrid mode. And if you're talking about the 2 off days, then that would be the ability to attend kind of the live stream or recorded lessons that are occurring that day, and work that would follow from the lessons and activities that occurred on the day that they were in school. So there's that. And then also, like if a student's just absent for whatever reason, then you would get work just as if you were absent in a typical setting.
And then Dr. Cognetta, there's another question again. If a student or a teacher tests positive, will the rest of the class be told in the event that there was a close contact between the two? I think they're looking for communication. How would that be provided?
So there are there are statutes that guide this, so we have to maintain confidentiality, but we also are obligated to inform you that you may have been exposed. So that will be happening. Crazy to think about. The closest example we have to this is when we notify about lice, right? When there's a case of lice in a classroom, we notify the parents that there's been a case in your classroom. We don't tell you who it is, but we tell you all the information that you need to know to have you then go and and make sure you're taking care of what you need to take care of by maintaining confidentiality. But you will be informed should that be the case. So, and these are, and as these continue to kind of evolve, these guidelines, we will also adjust as well. But in short, if there's a positive case in a classroom, anyone in that particular exposure will be contacted. The families will be contacted.
Another question was for students with special situations prior to school starting, will we be able to have a meeting with their teacher in order to go over it? The conversation we had today included things like Meet Your Wolf Pack, even if it were virtually, where we could also set up opportunities for those with special circumstances to have some communication with that teacher prior to the start of school. We know that's a very important piece, that communication piece, and we will continue to make sure that that is available to our community. Things, I know it was in the beginning of the presentation, but just to reiterate, things like back to school night, that sort of thing. If we are still in a distance learning or that hybrid, it will be, we're going to continue our culture and our communication with our stakeholders and our community. So even if it's virtually, all of those things will continue to take place.
There's a question about IEPs, and if we have to have those meetings, will they be held via Zoom or on campus? And parents always have the option to request that a meeting be in person. So we will hold that as if it is safe to do so at the time, and if that meets the recommendations. So possibly like a larger room or something like that. I also would like to allow parents to have the option to meet via Zoom and to ask for their consent if that is the request of a staff member as well.
I want to take Jada's question. If we choose hybrid, will we automatically go into a traditional class setting in stage 4, or will the students stay hybrid for the rest of the school year? I want to clarify, hybrid will not be an option for your choosing. The parental choice is the home-based instruction. So hybrid may be a model that we go into as a school at some point, whether it's the beginning or a different time in the school year. That will be the school-wide model. So it's not a choice. You wouldn't opt into hybrid. You would only opt out of it into the home-based model is the option. And maybe you were asking that. Just want to clarify that. So so if I can clarify, yeah, hybrid not being a choice. Still try to answer your question as far as replacing hybrid in your question with home-based. So if you chose home-based, will we automatically go into traditional class setting in stage 4, or will the students stay hybrid or home-based for the rest of the school year? Right now, our standing on this is that for the entire school year, we want to offer the option of stay home. That's our current standing. If for whatever reason that has to change, we will notify you. But given everything we've learned in the last few months and we continue to learn, we think the responsible thing to do is to provide parents an option, regardless of what model we're in, so that you can be accommodated at our school. So team, you want to add to that, or does that answer the question?
I think you got it.
Oh, thank you, Jada. She said yes, thank you. Okay, now did we, student IP, tell me to update.
I think we've got the questions.
Yeah. Whew. You guys are,
I know, huh?
okay, yeah. Any last thoughts from our team?
Just thank you for understanding that there's a lot of work going into this and a lot of unknowns, and we're really doing the best we can to do what's best for kids first. And we really appreciate the support. I can see it in the chat. You guys are amazing. Make sure you spread the word so that this is viewed, and that those surveys are so very important. We need that information back. And just, I applause to you all. Thank you.
I reiterate that, and also just want to add that it is ambitious to say that we're going to provide a full program in a hybrid model. And I am confident that our team can do it. The questions around student support are really important, and please do, continue to ask them. We will be monitoring our students very closely to ensure that, that they're making progress and make modifications to the program as needed moving forward.
Yeah. I know, just would be remiss if I didn't ask. I know, thank you. We have some staff who joined as well. So thank you, staff members, for taking time to join us as well. And I know we also have a couple board members here. I don't want to put you guys on the spot, but if you wanted to share any words, I definitely wanted to give you the opportunity to do that, and know that all of this will be presented to you for your input and approval as well. What's been shared to date is our best understanding of what reopening can look like. So with that, I think I saw Marcy, Troy, and possibly Jason was on. Did any of you want to share any words with members? Looks like a no. No, they're like, man, I'm trying to be a parent right now. Don't drag me in.
There we go, Samantha.
Oh, it's Sam.
Hi.
Oh, cool. Hi, Sam. Sorry, I didn't see you on there. Yeah.
I just wanted to thank you guys so much for working so hard to get the different scenario, relaying the message to the parents, because I know as a parent, we're kind of like in limbo and we don't know what's going to happen for the next school year. But I know you guys have been working really hard and appreciate it. And yeah, I just wanted to say thank you for doing that.
Yeah, thank you. Cool. Well, yeah,
Can I say something special? I could tell you, as one of the teachers, and I'm sure I hate speaking for teachers, but I'm sure they'll be in agreement. Our biggest thing is we want our kids in those seats. You know, we want to do what we love teaching. We didn't sign up to become teachers behind the screen, but yet at the same time, our kids, you know, our safety, the safety of everyone, and their health is our number one concern. So I know this is just an amazing staff, and I'm hoping they're enjoying their summer to get recharged. So no matter how we look opening up, we're going to be ready to go. And although we want our kids in the seat, you know, our number one priority is their safety. So we thank you, parents, for being patient, because that's what we tell the kids all the time, is have to be patient. But I know we're working hard.
Yeah. Ms. Lohoff, Dr. Bruno, I think you guys shared some.
I don't have anything more other than thank you. And Mrs. Valenta is 100% right. If we could have every child in a seat the first day of school, that would be a dream. And we are going to get there. It's just a matter of when, but we are going to get there.
Thank you. I want to echo those thoughts and share just some last ones as well. Again, to our new families, welcome aboard. This won't be the last time we interact, and hopefully it's one of the few times that we have to interact in this format. But no, I hope you got a taste a little bit about a taste of who we are, and know that this staff stops at nothing to provide the best experience for your children. That's the reputation we built in just a few years, and so we were fortunate enough to invite new members onto our team this year. Some of them are attending this meeting now, and it was real clear what everyone involved in the interview process was looking for. They were looking for people like them that are going to do everything for your children, and that's the team that is making these decisions and will execute them. So this is new for me. I mean, there's so many unknowns. At this time of the year, we have a lot of things answered going into a new school year. This is completely, I don't like that word, we've heard it too much, but it's true. We're in unprecedented times. We're making decisions with limited and fast changing information. But I couldn't think of a better group to do it with. And we are going to have in place a program that's going to continue to shine and going to meet the needs of our kids. It won't be perfect, but it will be with the students at the front and center of every decision. That's who this team is. I'm proud to be a part of these awesome folks. So welcome aboard, new families. Thank you to all our returning families for being a part of this. Remind your friends who didn't make it that this is available, will be available shortly on ASA TV. And expect updates as soon as we're able to get them to you guys. Stay tuned for a PAC meeting in 20 minutes if you want.
Yep.
Different URL. I'm sorry, different Zoom, not this one. Yeah. Thank you guys. Everyone have a wonderful night. Thanks, team.
Good night.